Hi, my name is Fiji McAlpine with Do Yoga With Me. This is lines, angles, and loops, a great foundational practice that really looks at the physical and energetic alignment principles of our most common poses. I hope you enjoy. Our practice today begins in a seated pose, one where you can rock side to side and root down into your hips. Set your hands on your knees, allow your eyes to close, and to truly give yourself a moment to connect the mind and the body. This practice requires us to use that inner sight, our inner eye, to feel our way into frames, to think about lines and energy loops inside of our body, angles that our body is creating for stability and strength. Using the mind to help hold our awareness in this moment. With your eyes closed here, think about the line currently being created by the spine itself. From the root at the tailbone, anchoring you to the floor, extending straight up into the crown of your head, the subtle curves that take place naturally in the back. Just allowing that mind's eye to take its time and explore the spine from bottom to top. To know where those curves are, to know perhaps the areas of your back that are innately flexible, maybe overly flexible, maybe a sway in the lower lumbar spine. We can generate a bit of core strength to help draw the tailbone under a little bit more, giving more length and more lift to that area of the spine. The chin drawing in towards the throat helps the back of your neck get nice and long, taking any arch there out. And the shoulders can fall further from the ears. Feel your heart center, always lifting, always light, but take your heart slightly back towards the wall behind you. Now feel the line created by the spine. More length. More like a vertical pillar from bottom to top. Let your eyes open, keeping the gaze nice and soft down the cheeks towards the floor. Take your arms and stretch your arms out to the side. See if you can move your hands back so the arm bones themselves disappear out of your peripheral gaze. Try and hold that strong line of energy through your spine from bottom to top. Without seeing your arms, move them around until you can sense and feel that they're running parallel to the floor, radiating out from the shoulders. Now keep those lines of energy strong as you lift up with your heart and turn the chest as far as you can to the right side of the room. Try and keep your arms running parallel to the floor at the same level, extending out with the same amount of energy. Loop the tailbone under, rolling the pubic bone towards your navel, keeping that sense of strength through the lower belly and lower back. Crown of the head is lifting, shoulders dropping. Now from here, let your right hand come down to the mat. Take your left arm up and over, bending your right elbow and leaning back towards your right hip. Keep both sit bones firmly planted to the floor. As you inhale, come back up. Keeping your twist, extend both arms, arm bones moving back. Slowly bring the chest back to center. Resettle the shoulders, extend out again into the hands, root into your sit bones, draw the navel back, flatten your lower lumbar spine. Inhale, and as you exhale, twist, moving the collarbone to face the left side of the room. Every inhale, there's a sensation of lifting. Every exhale, deepening the twist just a bit. Now bring your left hand down to the mat, take your right arm up and over, bend your left elbow to lean back towards your left hip, but keep both hips, both sit bones firmly rooted to the floor as your anchors. Come back to center, extending your arms, find that point where they're both parallel to the floor, and then again bring the chest back to center. From here, the hands sweep forward and down. Pull yourself up to your hands and your knees. Coming into the frame of tabletop pose, a great way to explore the lines and angles of our body. Stack your shoulders over your wrists. Turn your wrists so that the crease line of the wrist runs parallel now to the front line of your mat. Flare your fingers and push into each and every fingertip. Hook your 10 toes under and squeeze your ankles in towards the midline. Move the hips forward with slightly drawn under tailbone so you feel a lift through your lower back, so that there's no arch in the lower lumbar spine. Your gaze is locking down towards the floor so that your neck remains neutral with the rest of your spine. Slow, steady inhale, full, complete exhale as you feel your way into this frame. As you allow the sensation of the frame itself to be implanted into cellular memory, so that your body remembers how to find its way back into this pose quite easily without too much thought. Now on your next inhale, take the right leg, extend the right leg back. Here we begin to develop that proprioception, the mind-body awareness. Lift your right hip and then lower it millimeter by millimeter until you sense that your hips are even to one another. That your right hip is no higher or lower than the left. That the kneecap and the toes are pointing down, the heel extending back, and that we're not allowing the lower lumbar spine to sway. We're drawing the tailbone under and giving the kidneys again that sensation of lift. Tucking the chin, extending through the back of your neck so you feel like you have a nice line created with your entire spine from bottom to top that runs parallel to the floor. Slow, steady, even breathing. Shoulders stacking over your wrists. So there's a 90-degree angle that's created by the arm bones and the torso. Now crawl the left fingers forward, pause for a moment, stay here, or if you're able to do it, lift your left hand from the floor and try and bring the left arm to the same elevation as your back right leg. And extend evenly through both limbs with the same amount of energy. Again, awareness to your lower lumbar spine. There's a tendency there to sway. Again, awareness to your hips, keeping the shoulders and hips square to the floor. Slow, steady, even breathing. Gaze is down to the ground so the neck is neutral. Now bring the left hand down to the mat. Take your gaze to the right. Pull your right knee up to your right shoulder. Take the right leg out to the side. Heel down, toes up. Try and lift your right leg until it's parallel to the floor here. Try and create a 90-degree angle with your torso and your right leg. Lower the right foot all the way down to touch. And then lift it back up. Heel the same elevation as your right hip. Twice more down to touch. And lift. Last time down to touch. And lift. Now point the toes, swing the right leg back. And bring your right kneecap down to the floor under your right hip. Inhale, undulate the spine, take cow belly breath. Here we're allowing the back to create that arch. Exhale, deeply round the spine. It's important to know what those extremes feel like so that when we are in that neutral position, we can tell the difference. We have sensations to compare it to. Now again, slightly draw the tailbone under, lifting the kidneys. Push down into your palms, flare the fingers, push into the tips of your fingers. With your gaze down on the ground so your neck is neutral, take your left leg and extend it back. Strong engagement of the leg from the hip all the way through the heel. Lift the left hip and then edge your way down until you feel your left hip is the same level as your right hip. Keep that engagement, keep the extension back into the heel as you pull your toes in towards your shin. Notice now if you've leaned over into your right shoulder and right hand, see if you can keep your weight evenly distributed between both palms. Slow, steady, even cycles of breath. Keep tucking the chin until your neck is neutral as well. Now you can take the right hand and start to crawl the right fingertips forward. Pausing here, or if you're able to, lift your right arm and extend evenly into both limbs. Forward into your hand, back into your heel. Find strength and length in your spine. Now bring that right hand down underneath the right shoulder, planting the palm. Take your gaze to the left and pull your left knee up towards your left shoulder. Take your left heel out to the side and try and rotate the heel down, the toes up. Foot is the same elevation as your left hip, creating that nice 90-degree angle with your left leg and your torso. Now lower the left foot down to hover. Lift the left leg back up. Do that twice more. Lower the heel to hover and lift. Last time to hover and lift. Point the toes, swing the left leg back behind you. Bring the left kneecap down to the ground. Hook the 10 toes under. Inhale to cow belly breath. Get nice and long through the spine. Exhale, tuck the tailbone under so that the pubic bone is rolling in towards the navel. Tuck the chin in towards your collarbone. Feel that circular nature to this energy loop. Come back out to tabletop pose, stretching that spine nice and long. And as you exhale, push into your palms, float your knees, and bring your belly to your thighs. Heels are lifted, modified downward facing dog. Stacking your heels over the flexion point of your toes. Pushing your hands into the mat and forward as the chest reaches back. There's a sloping diagonal line created from your hips to your shoulders, extending from your shoulders down to your elbows, elbows to your wrists. One nice sloping diagonal line that could direct a bead of water from your tailbone to the crown of your head, so that energy in the spine is pooling down towards the crown. Now on your next exhale, work your right leg straight, pushing the heel towards the mat, keeping your left heel lifted and left knee drawn towards the rib cage. Few cycles of breath here, even pressure between both of your hands. The shoulder girdle is even to the floor, still maintaining that sloping diagonal line from the hips down to the hands. Now lift your right heel, bend your right knee, push your left heel straight back and down. Slow, steady, even cycles of breath, just drinking the sensations that the left leg has to offer in this pose. Now lift the left heel, both knees are bent, belly to your thighs. Push both heels straight back and down. So there's a sensation here of lifting with the hips, energizing the front of your legs, and anchoring through the heels, even though the heels themselves may not touch the mat. There's a strong pressure forward as you're pushing into your hands, and that helps your chest reach back. You can scoop the tailbone down towards your heels here to give you the sense of strength through the lower belly and lengthening through the lower back. And there's a broadening through the shoulders as the shoulder blades roll away from one another and pull back away from your ears. Take one more cycle of breath in this frame. Exhale until you're completely empty. On your next inhale, bring the chest forward so your shoulders stack over your wrists. Push back into your heels and try and create another line that slopes. This time the slope is more gradual and goes from our head to our shoulders, from our shoulders to our hips, from our hips to our knees, and our knees back through our heels. We want that line to be nice and strong, consistent. Taking that slope again to direct a single bead of water from our head all the way through to our feet. The energy loop that provides strength in this pose is one in the pelvis. We're tilting the pelvis, scooping the tailbone under, rolling the pubic bone up towards the navel. So the energy is flowing continuously in that direction from tailbone up towards navel. That helps you to engage the lower belly, providing a sense of support and lift through the bridge of the body, which is the torso, uniting the power of the upper and lower body together. Heels reach back, hands push down, belly is lifting. Now bring everything down to the mat. Point the 10 toes straight back. Pull your elbows strongly in. The same energy loop in the pelvis exists in cobra pose to protect the lower back as we lift the heart. So start by pushing the pubic bone down, rolling the tailbone under. Now draw the elbows in and pull the elbows towards the floor. That helps you to lift the chest. Again, change anything that might feel uncomfortable in the lower back by checking first with the energy loop, by tucking the tailbone under, pushing into the pubic bone. Pull the elbows in and then pull the elbows down. That might give you another stage of lift. In the third stage, we can draw the tailbone under, push into the pubic bone, Elbows in and down, and you can apply pressure into your hands, giving you that final lift. The muscles that line your spine here should feel incredibly warm and engaged. Now as you exhale, release the heart back down. Hook your 10 toes under, pushing into your palms. Come straight back up into plank. Move the hips back. Find the sloping diagonal line of downward facing dog. From hips to shoulders, shoulders to wrists. And step forward 1 foot at a time to forward fold. Here, flip the palms and let everything go in your upper body. Relax your shoulders, soften your knees, wiggle your toes. Be as passive as you possibly can in this first forward fold, where you let everything melt forward and down and you let go of as much physical tension as you possibly can surrender in this moment at the beginning of your practice. The more tension we release, the more space we find, the more possibility for movement we have. Now keep the fingers on the floor and line them up with your toes. Push into the 4 corners of your feet and tuck your chin. Feel that long line of energy through your neck now. Lift the back of your neck towards the sky as the crown of your head reaches forward towards the wall in front of you. Your legs engage and they become straight-ish, never forcing your knees to lock. As you push down into your feet, you'll feel the sit bones rise and gently pull apart, trying to create what would resemble the number 7 in your body. So your head is never quite as high as your hips, slightly lower here, but we would like a flat line of energy through the back. Now as you exhale, push into your fingertips and bend your elbows straight back. As your elbows bend straight back, take the length of your torso forward and down, and the crown of your head would now point to the floor as your gaze travels back between your legs. Keep pushing through your feet to lift up through your sit bones and pull them gently apart. Now the energy loop that holds you into an active forward fold is one that engages the core. We're scooping the tailbone under, rolling the pubic bone towards the navel, but we're doing the same thing with the lower rib cage. The last 3 ribs are knitting in towards the back side of your body. They're pulling in and under. With your next inhale, come halfway up again, create the number 7 with the body, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, again, return to that active forward fold, pulling the ribs in, pushing the fingers down, hugging your elbows in and back. Push into your heels, lift with your sit bones. Feel everything dynamic and active and long and engaged. Bend your knees now, begin to drop your hips as though you're sitting down into a low bench. As you sit down into this low bench, reach your hips back for space through the torso, and then take your arms and extend your arms forward. Imagine someone is pulling on your wrists and your hips at the same time with the same amount of force. Now from here, we're taking the chest up off the thighs. Gaze can be at the ground. We're doing this to preserve the length through the neck. Tuck the chin slightly in, scoop the tailbone under, feel your kidneys lift, your lower back lengthen. Move the hips back and lower the sit bones down, eventually to the same level as your kneecaps. Shoulders are on your back. Again, a sloping diagonal line is being created now, extended through your arms and back through your torso. Bring the palms together to touch and stand tall. Bring the hands down beside your hips. Loop the shoulders up, back, and down. Try and feel the shoulders over your hips, hips over your heels. On the next inhale, reach the arms up. Now adding the stacking of your elbows and your wrists. Notice with the elevation of the arms what happens to the shape of the spine. The shape of the spine often turns into a bit of a back bend where the hips go back and the shoulders go back, belly pours forward. When we elevate our arms, we need to preserve the energy loop, drawing the tailbone under and rotating the pubic bone up and in towards the navel. At the same time, your heart can be light and lifted, but we need to ask the last 3 ribs to pull in and under. Now lengthen through the back side of your body. As you exhale, hinge at the hips, drop the hands down. Halfway up, create that number 7 with the body, keeping your chin drawn in towards your throat. Do that active forward fold as you exhale. Push into your fingertips, engage your core, pull the ribs in. Now step your left leg back, high lunge position. When we step back, it's important to step the left foot back behind the hip, not behind the line of your right heel. Move forward and back with your back left foot until you can create a vertical line with your right shin bone where your knee stacks over your ankle. You're trying to lift your left hip up to the same level as your right and square the hips at the same time. This usually means pulling your right hip back, sending your left hip forward. Scoop the tailbone under slightly, push down into both feet and out with both feet. That should generate enough power in your foundation so that you don't need to use your hands. When you come up to your exalted base, your arms float overhead, remembering that when we elevate our arms, there's a tendency to do that back bend, often overcompensating here with that innate ability to move our lower lumbar spine. Try and generate strength by inviting your ribs to come back in. Soften the back knee, scoop the tailbone under, creating that pelvic tilt. Move the chest back and the arms back. Find strength, square the hips, keep that energy loop of the tailbone scooping in towards the navel and the ribs rolling in and under. Now, if it's available to you, you can work on pushing the back heel towards the wall behind you without throwing the hips off. Slow, steady, even cycles of breath. Biceps are framing your cheeks or your ears, exalted warrior. Now as you exhale, let's bring both hands down to the instep of your right foot. Using the elevation of the fingertips, pivot your back left heel to the mat. Right arm is leaning against your right knee and holding or preserving the line and the angle created by the right leg. We want the shin to be a vertical pillar, so is the right arm. We want the angle of the right leg to be a nice 90-degree angle created by the upper and lower leg bone. Now your left arm opens to the side, stacking yourself wrist, shoulder, shoulder, wrist. So the vertical pillar goes from the floor to the sky through your arms, including your collarbone. Now the energy loop here is very important. It scoops the tailbone under, rolling the pubic bone in, pull the ribs back in, lift up into the left hand and push out into your left heel. Sink down with your hips until you have a nice diagonal sloping line that goes through your spine from top to bottom and extends back into your left leg through your heel. Try taking your left arm over your head with your bicep tickling your ear, getting very close to doing that. Try and keep your shoulders stacked. Notice when we take this side angle pose, there's always the temptation to go into that back bend, flaring the chest. But the energy loop helps us draw the tailbone under, curl the ribs back in. Keep moving the hips down, keep the right knee tracking over your right ankle. Bring the left hand down to mat. Lift your left heel, take the right hand forward, inhale. Create a sloping diagonal line from your right arm through your left foot. Bring your right hand to the outside of your right foot, push into both palms, and step into downward facing dog. Both heels towards the floor, head hangs heavy, push out into your hands. Inhale forward to your plank pose, shoulders over your wrists. Bend your elbows now as we try Chaturanga Dandasana. Your elbows are bending halfway or even less, always keeping your shoulders higher than your hips. Keep that sway out of your lower back, scoop the tailbone under, hug your elbows in. Now flip the feet, engage the legs immediately, straighten the arms, heels roll in. Very slight arch in the lower back, preserving that line of energy by keeping the legs strong. Soften the elbows, flip the feet, engage the legs, and again visit downward facing dog. Lift your heels, step up between your hands. Bend your knees, drop the hips. Feel your way into the frame of Utkatasana, extending your arms. and that active forward fold. Push the fingers into the floor, draw the ribs in, take your gaze straight back between your legs. Halfway up, inhale. Right leg steps back, exhale. Pivot the right heel up so that it's stacking over your toes. Sink that left knee down to stack over your ankle, looking at that nice vertical line created. As you look forward and back to your feet, make sure they're approximately hips distance apart and that your right foot hasn't stepped back behind your left heel. Now as you push down into your feet, square the hips, scoop the tailbone under, use the strength of your legs to test your foundation. And then you're ready to come up to your exalted base. So your arms move overhead, you sink down and into the legs, tailbone scoops under, shoulders roll back and plug down. Hug your elbows in, flare the fingers. And again, think about your heart. Are you lifting the heart and arching the back, or are you lifting the heart and strengthening the belly? Scoop the tailbone under, knit the ribs in towards the back side of your body. You can square the hips by bending the back knee, and then slowly work on straightening that back leg. Feeling that your biceps here are framing your cheeks, framing your ears. Now we're going to move the hands forward and down to the inside of your foot, using the elevation of your fingertips on the inside of your heel. Your left arm is leaning against your left knee to hold it back and in position, creating a 90-degree angle with the upper and lower leg bone. Pivot the right heel down to the mat. Sink your hips down without buckling your back knee at all. Keep the pressure in the outer edge of your right foot strong as you take your right arm up to the sky and stack wrist, shoulder, shoulder, wrist. Try and create a sloping diagonal line that will go from your head through to your right heel. Try and stack your arms, stack your shoulders. Scoop the tailbone under here, knit the ribs in, lengthen the spine. Make sure you're breathing through all of this. Take your right arm over your head, bicep tickling your cheek, palm turned down. Keep scooping the tailbone under here. There's always that temptation to go into a back bend in this pose. Keep that pressure and energy moving strongly through the outer edge of your right foot. Bring the right hand down to the mat. Lift your right heel up. Take the left hand, stretch it forward. Take the left hand to the outside of the foot, pushing into your palm, step into downward facing dog at the back of your mat. Inhale forward to your plank pose. Tailbone tucks under, pubic bone rolling up and in towards your navel. Tuck the chin, lift the back of your neck up. Chaturanga, halfway down or less. Flip the feet. Upward facing dog, keep the legs strong. Downward facing dog. Gentle rise, easy follow the breath. Lift the heels, look to your hands. Step between the thumbs. Halfway up, rise to the very tips of your fingers. Now as you exhale, step back with your left foot, perhaps not as far back as your exalted base. Pivot your left heel in with a slight bend to your right knee. Lead with your left arm and come all the way up and around. Now work the right leg straight without locking the knee. The back left leg is straight as well. Your right toes are pointing straight forward, and your left toes, in contrast, are pointing out to the side, creating a 90-degree angle. Take your arms and extend them on shoulder level, out from your heart with the same amount of force. Try and tone the under part of your arm. From here, reach into your back hand just to help you anchor through your back heel. Maintain that sense of anchor as you then reach forward into your right hand. Draw the tailbone under here rather than reaching your hips towards the wall behind you. Now let your right arm just drop under the right socket and let the right hand touch anywhere along your leg that it can lightly touch without bearing weight. Take your left arm up towards the sky and try and stack those two arms. Keep scooping your tailbone under as a way of pushing the hips forward. Think again about the energy loop of the rib cage rolling in and under. That's moving your chest over your right knee. Now let your right hand slide down slowly to a point of comfort or sweet discomfort, but never pain. Draw the tailbone under a little bit more and push down into your anchor, your back heel. Remember that base and then move out from there. Keep breathing, keep stacking the shoulders, keep stacking your arms, keep checking in with your belly. Hug the belly in, take the arch out of the back. Now think about the line created by your spine right now. You might not be able to see it, but we want a line created by our spine that runs parallel to the floor in this pose. That means the rib cage in general needs to take that rainbow shape that we get in triangle pose and flatten it out, meaning the heart is sinking just a bit towards the floor, head lifting often just a little bit, tailbone tucking under. If your balance feels good, the bridge of your nose turns up, the chin draws in so your neck is in the same line with the rest of the spine. Now bend your right knee and come all the way back up. Take your gaze to your top hand and let's spiral both hands down to the mat. Take a step to the back of your mat in downward facing dog. Pedal your heels out here. Take a few cycles of breath. Inhale, move the energy forward to your plank. Remember, this pose can be done with your knees on the ground, still preserving those same lines of energy, those same loops of energy as well in the pelvis. You can move through chaturanga with your elbows bent, knees on the ground or off the ground, upward dog or cobra. Keeping the legs toned and engaged. Pushing back into downward facing dog. Full cycle of breath. Now lift your heels, look to your hands and step between the thumbs. Come halfway up on the inhale. Step your right leg back as you exhale. Pivot the right heel to the mat, softening your left knee to come up on this side in preparation for triangle pose. Straightening that left leg out, checking in with the direction of your feet, left foot pointing forward, right foot pointing out to the side, creating that 90-degree angle. Arms extending on shoulder level in two different directions with the same amount of energy, toning your underarm. Now reaching into your back, right hand this time to help you really push down into your right heel and to feel that sense of anchoring in your back foot. And then extending forward, maintaining that anchor as you reach into your left hand. Let your left hand drop under the shoulder and start anywhere it can touch very lightly against the leg. Now stack the shoulders and stack your arms and progressively let the left hand slide down. Draw the tailbone under, moving the hips forward. Scoop the ribs in towards your back body, moving your chest forward as well. This should actually decrease the amount of space between the bottom of your ribs and the top of your hips because they're both rolling in towards the navel. This is essentially helping you to lengthen your back and take the arch out of the lower lumbar spine. Now you're thinking about the shape of your spine and you're trying to flatten the rib cage towards the floor so that your back can eventually run parallel to the mat underneath you. If your balance feels good, the bridge of your nose is turning up towards the sky. Slow, steady inhale, full, complete exhale. Keep exploring the sensations in the spine. Keep rooting that tailbone under, pushing the hips forward. Keep rolling the rib cage in. Now bend the left knee. Use the strength from both legs to help you lift the torso and take your gaze to the front hand. Bring both hands down to mat. Step to the back of your mat in downward facing dog. Pedal your heels out. Take a few cycles of breath. Inhale to come forward, finding your plank with your knees on or off the floor, halfway down or less, elbows bending straight back and not out to the side. Upward dog or cobra as you inhale. Downward facing dog, exhale. Slow, steady, even breathing. Lift your heels nice and high, look to your hands, step between your thumbs.
Halfway up on the inhale, tuck the chin. Remember that number 7 created by the body. Bend your elbows backward, push into your fingers, hug the ribs in towards the back side of the body, push down into your feet to lift up through your hips. Bend your knees as you sit down in the chair of Utkatasana. Create a sloping diagonal line from your head to your tailbone. Scoop the tailbone under, elevate the arms. Touch your palms together, stand tall in Tadasana, and drop the hands beside your hips. Roll the shoulders up, back, and down. Separate your feet hips distance. On the next inhale, bring the hands forward in front of the chest. Scoop the tailbone here, roll the shoulders back, and then rise onto the balls of your feet and your toes, lifting your heels and squeezing them energetically towards the midline. Now bend your knees forward so the knees come out over your toes. Heels stay lifted, and the tailbone is still scooping under as you sink. Your spine is vertical from bottom to top, and you're coming down one stage or one level at a time. Come down eventually until your sit bones rest on your heels, and your quadriceps run parallel to the floor. 90-degree angle created by your upper body and your upper leg bones. Now bring your arms up. Try and move the arm bones back so the arms disappear out of your peripheral gaze. Send the shoulders down. Keep squeezing your ankles in. Now bring the fingertips slowly down to the floor. Lean towards your hands. Keep your heels lifted as you lift your hips up. From here, set your palms flat. Take your gaze forward. Now we're creating a diagonal line that goes from the hips to the head. Now we have the hips higher than the heart, head lower than the heart, fingers flared. The crease line of the wrists, again running parallel to the front line of your mat. Heels are lifting, and your knees come to gently touch the back of your arms. Gazes forward, start to lean forward until there's more weight in your hands than you have in your feet. Now the energy loop of strength in Bakasana or crow pose is one, again, that draws the tailbone under as you do that push into your knees and rolls the rib cage in. As you find that sense of strength through the core, more weight transfers into your hands, and you might feel strong enough to peel one foot at a time off the mat. Lower the feet back down, step the feet back. Downward facing dog. Full cycle of breath in, and exhale all the way out. Move your feet together now so your big toes touch. Start to lift your right heel up, but do it incredibly slowly so that through your mind's eye you can feel when there is a sloping diagonal line that's created through the right side of your body from your heel to your hip to your shoulder to your wrist, where your right hip is not lifted any higher than your left hip. Keeping this frame helps us to work through tension in the standing leg, the left leg, the outer leg especially, the performance muscle area in the outer hip, that IT band. Now on the next exhale, pull the right knee forward to your chest, stack your shoulders over your wrist. Take the right leg and push it back. Now as you exhale, step your right foot to your right thumb. Lower the left knee down to the ground. Keep the left toes hooked under. Bring the hands to your hips and pull the hips back. Pull the hips back until your left hip stacks over your left knee. Your right hip is pulling back so your pelvis is running parallel to the front line of your mat. Energy loop scoops the tailbone under, rolls the ribs in. With that energy loop intact, move the hips forward until you feel a sensation of stretch here in your left hip flexor. Hold strength, squeeze in, tailbone scoops, arms up. As your arms lift, notice there's a tendency to flare the ribs, draw them back down and in, and drop the shoulders. Get longer through the back side of your body and your spine. Feel a pull through the back of your head and neck as the chin falls towards your throat. On the next exhale, bring both hands forward and down. Pushing into your palms, float your left knee. Pushing into your palms, float the right leg. As you exhale again, the knee into chest. Step into your high plank, inhale. As you exhale, move through Vinyasa, Chaturanga, upward dog, always with those lines and angles in mind. Downward facing dog. Even as we flow, we do so with awareness, with purpose. Movements are for a purpose, on purpose, to help our body stay safe and strong. Now move the feet together. Left foot towards the sky. Toes are pointing down, knee is pointing down. Lifting that foot just to the point where you feel the temptation to lift your left hip. The temptation to lift the hip is to escape the sensation that's so strongly radiating down the back of the right leg, through the right hip into the right heel. The pressure in your palms is the same. The distance between your shoulders and the floor is the same. There's a sloping diagonal line created through your left leg from your heel all the way down to your hip, from your left hip to your left shoulder and your shoulder to your wrist. Now exhale, pull your left knee into chest. Inhale, take the left leg back up. Step your left foot now to your left thumb. Bring the right knee to the ground. Bring your hands onto your hips and pull your hips back. Try and square the hips again to the front line of the mat by pulling the left hip back. Scoop the tailbone under, pull the ribs down and in. Holding that engagement, now move the torso and the hips forward as one unit. When you feel the temptation to buckle in the spine, that's where you pause and pull back, draw under, re-engage. Take your arms forward and up. Relax the shoulders down. Relax the ribs down. Crown of the head is reaching to the sky. Everything squeezes in and gets longer. Make sure you're breathing. Bring the hands down. Lift the right knee. Take the left leg back up to the sky and draw the knee into chest. Step the left leg into high plank. Feel the frame. Bring the knees to the ground and slowly ease into child's pose. Here we let go of the idea of maintaining lines and angles and control and strength. And we allow ourselves instead to go soft, to roll in and completely release. Inhale to roll the spine up. Cross your ankles and send your feet forward. As you move your hips to the middle of your mat, position your feet so they're actually hips distance apart, checking in with your hips to make sure they are. From here, we're going to be easing down onto our back. And then moving your feet towards your sit bones without moving them in towards one another. Keep your knees stacked above your ankles. Feel like your shins are vertical. Scoop your tailbone under so there's more pressure in your kidneys and your lower back against the floor. Keep the scoop of your tailbone as you now elevate the pelvis, coming into bridge pose. Keep your knees hugging in towards one another without touching when your feet are separated hips distance apart. Keep scooping that tailbone under and now push into the back of the shoulders. Let your chin curl in towards your collarbone, taking a nice deep flexion now or angle in the neck. Keep your gaze locked on one spot above you, not turning your head from side to side. Slow, steady, even cycles of breath. You can watch the rise and fall of your breath over your torso because of the angle of your gaze and the tuck of your chin. Now as you exhale, lower your hips back down. Move your feet together now so they do touch. As you do this, squeeze the knees in. Push down into your heels, scoop the tailbone under, and lift your hips a second time. Holding your knees in, noticing the difference in the workload, now positioning that workload in the outer hips and glutes to push the knees and hold the knees together. Keep drawing the tailbone under, push down into the shoulders, tuck the chin. Slowly release back down. From here, allow the bottom of your feet to rotate in, your knees to rotate out. Flip the palms towards the sky.
Take a full cycle of breath. Gentle rise, easy follow the breath. Slowly bring the knees back together. Extend the left leg nice and long. Pull your right knee up towards your chest, using your hands to guide the knee towards your shoulder. Tone your left leg from hip to heel with your toes and shin pointing up. Now use your right hand against the outside edge of your right foot to slowly pull the foot to shine towards the sky. Try and manipulate the foot back until you feel like your shin bone is vertical and you're creating a 90-degree angle with your upper and lower leg bone. And then move the right knee towards the floor on the outside of your rib cage. Half happy baby pose, keeping tone to your legs. Now release the grip around the outer edge of your right foot. Send your right leg nice and long. Bring your left knee into your chest, using your hands to pull the left knee up towards the shoulder. Tone your right leg now. Use your left hand to grab the outer edge of the foot and to pull your foot back so the bottom of your foot is shining to the sky. Gently pull that left knee down towards the floor, feeling the release of the hip. Now release the grip around your left foot and extend your left leg nice and long. Tone both legs and then let them go soft. Bring your hands down beside your hips, flare the fingers, tone your arms, and let your arms go soft. Let your fingers relax. They might naturally want to curl in towards your palm. Take a full cycle of breath and then allow your entire body to go soft. Allow the natural undulations of the spine to return, the curves of the body, the energy flowing freely through the frame. Start to move your fingers and your toes, open and close your hands. Bring your knees towards your chest, flex your feet, and grab hold of the kneecaps. Lift your feet towards the sky, and then as you exhale, pull both feet down towards the floor, rolling yourself up, crossing your ankles, pushing the knees down. Push down with your hands and rock side to side to find your hips. Sit as tall as you truly are, scooping the tailbone under, inviting the ribs back in, bringing your hands to your heart center, feeling the length through the back side of your body, letting your chin fall in towards your throat, shoulders fall down towards the floor, feeling this sense of stability, strength, and alignment, keeping it with you for the rest of your day. And until next we meet, namaste.